with a taste of New Orleans today at 3:45. Now, as the morning continues on BBC One, in a Change the Build episode for Love or Money.
It's been a time full of opportunities for unscrupulous scammers.
A time where loneliness and isolation have been preyed upon like never before.
Cases of romance fraud have skyrocketed. It can be an emotionally and financially devastating crime, with victims losing an average of £10,000.
Whether you're retired, a teacher or a doctor, it could happen to anyone.
I can't believe that I believed them.
So we're back to expose the lies behind these audacious cons and to try and stop the scammers in their tracks. We'll be revealing the tricks these scammers will use to cheat and mislead.
They're exchanging information and these can be moved around on a dark web.
And meeting the teams working day and night to bring them to justice.
There's a place out the door.
And as ever, we'll have everything you need to know to make sure you and your money stay safe.
Who the are you?
Don't swear at me, pal.
Coming up, the heartbreak of learning you've sent £60,000 to a massive scamming operation.
The proxy server that links to Philip's profile also has links to over 1,300 other fake profiles. How this woman fell for a serial con artist.
She said, "Are you with Gary?" And I said, "Yeah, we're together." She said, "So am I."
And how this policeman helped bring that con artist to justice.
We've got convictions going back several years for romance fraud and vehicle fraud. For him, it's not a relationship, it's a job.
All right, Kim, we've been contacted by someone called Joanna. Feels like she's coming to terms with the idea she's being scammed, but wants to know more. Let's take a look.
Never seem to find the right person that wants to share their life with me. So last year I thought, right, I've been talking to a young friend. She said, go for it, Joe. So I joined Tinder. I met this person towards the end of May last year. We seemed to hit it off, chatting. Quite quickly, he asked me to change to WhatsApp because he felt that we'd clicked and he wanted to just chat with me. He said he was flying to Naples for work for a month. And every time we were texting, he would say, oh, when I'm back, we'll live together, we'll be a family. But just about a week before he was due to come back, he asked me for £10,000 to be able to buy the equipment that he needed to finish his contract. I gave him the £10,000 and then something else happened a few days later and he needed more money. Then something else happened, he needed more money. I know it's pathetic, but I always like to see the best in people. I trust people and take people at face value and believe in them. And I want to know the truth. Is he real?
She's desperate for that answer so that she can put that to bed and make her peace with it, almost.
Whilst Ashley gets to grips with the photos, emails and documents Philip Keith exchanged with nurse Joanna, I'm meeting up with her to find out some more about how she fell for Philip after they connected online.
Take me back to the beginning. So what was your relationship status before you met?
Single.
Okay.
A friend persuaded me to go on Tinder and I did.
Yeah.
I was in my 50s. I thought, right, come on.
Yeah.
Very lonely, so I thought, well, you can't wait around for something to happen. You need to make it happen yourself. Met a couple of people, and then all of a sudden, Philip came along.
Philip Keith was a 54-year-old German civil engineer who was now living in Newcastle. He told 55-year-old Joanna he was divorced and had an 18-year-old daughter called Joyce, who was still at school in Germany.
Liked his picture?
Yeah, started chatting, and then I suppose I'm quite impatient. I just thought, well, there's no point in carrying on with this if we don't want to take it any further, so let's meet for a coffee.
Philip told Joanna he was flying to Naples for a work project and that he'd be away for a month. Unfortunately, he was unable to meet for coffee before he left.
At this point, What was your conversation like?
Just get like normal getting to know you kind of conversation, but just everyday kind of things. And then out of the blue asked me to send him £100 for an Italian SIM card. I ummed and ahed and said no, and then kept saying we can chat properly. So I thought, well, okay. So I sent it as a game card.
Did he say why he couldn't pay for that himself?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, his bank account had been frozen.
After helping Philip with £100 for a SIM card so they could carry on speaking, Joanna received a message with some worrying news.
Another message saying his daughter had collapsed at school in Germany, in Cologne, and she needed blood transfusion, and they wouldn't give her treatment without payment up front. So I Googled German healthcare system. I just said that there's no way that they would withhold life-saving care. But he just kept on and on and on.
And you argued a little bit?
Yeah, he gets quite nasty, quite threatening. It's your fault if she dies. I'll never recover from this. She's my daughter. She's all I've got. I've no family. You've got to help me.
Do you think he played on the fact that you're a nurse?
Possibly, yeah. He really, he knew which buttons to press.
Yeah.
Sending £3,000 for his daughter's medical bills seemed to make Philip happy, and the couple continued to make plans for the future.
It was all nice again. He went to visit his daughter. He showed me a picture at the railway station, going to visit her. It was all nice. He was saying, we're going to do this, we're going to do that.
But it wasn't long before Philip had another problem he wanted her help with.
And I get a phone call this time saying there's been a problem with the job, that his equipment's come from America. They won't let it off the ship because they need the final payment for it. And he can't access his money.
And he's still in Naples at this point?
Yeah, he needs this equipment to finish the job.
And how much?
10,000.
This time, Philip's request for more cash came with a shocking ultimatum.
When I said no, I said no for quite a while. He threatened suicide and sent me a picture of a gun saying he was going to do it. And
he sent you a picture of a gun and said he's going to kill himself?
Yeah, if I didn't send this money.
We've never seen anything like this in all the scams we've investigated. Was Philip really that desperate, or was this an elaborate way of applying emotional pressure on Joanna to pay up?
I wanted to check out some of the information Philip sent Joanna to start to get a picture of whether he was using emotional blackmail for more nefarious means. He's given her an address. I'm going to look that up, and I should be able to see who actually lives at the address and if in fact it is Philip Keith, as he claims. 2 people live at the address. They have been there for 18 years. Neither of them go by the name of Philip Keith. Something clearly isn't adding up here. I also have a number associated with Philip Keith. I'm going to look it up. At the bottom of this page where I've researched the number, a review's come up. This number belongs to a scammer. Plain and simple. Oh, this isn't looking good, is it?
Whilst Ashley's unravelling some uncomfortable information about Philip, I'm still getting to know more about the influence he had over Joanna. She'd been chatting to Philip for just a few weeks and had already sent him thousands of pounds. But their relationship had taken a dark turn when he threatened suicide unless Joanna sent him more money.
How did you feel when he sent you that picture of a gun like that?
Horrified, shocked,
yeah.
Scared. A lot of crying, a lot of soul searching, and a lot of why could somebody do this? In the middle of the night, I got a text from a friend of his saying that Philip was in the emergency room, he'd shot himself, that it was 50-50 if he survived. And if he died, it would be my fault, because he needed money for medical bills.
Racked with guilt that Philip had indeed pulled the trigger, Joanna transferred £10,000 to him to have his work equipment released and £3,000 for medical bills. A thankful Philip made a speedy recovery and was soon making plans to return to England.
He booked a flight to come back to Newcastle, and that was supposed to be on a Sunday. I texted him to say, have a good journey, blah, blah, blah. Oh, I've missed my flight. I was stuck in a meeting at work. So I was understandably quite cross.
But already at this point, you're asking questions, or was it just that...
I've asked questions all along, but he always seems to find a way to explain it, to make it seem real, to make it seem genuine. Nastiness as well, threatening, but it just sows that seed of doubt.
After missing his flight back to the UK, Philip told Joanna he would rearrange another for later that day. But then she received a phone call. Philip had had an accident at work and said he needed more money for medical bills.
There seems to be a theme there.
Yeah, and if at the time, if I could take myself out of it, I could see that what I was doing was ridiculous. But something just kept me carrying on and believing in him.
The mind games were becoming too much for Joanna, and she finally challenged Philip.
He sent me a picture when he was discharged from hospital. I'm not convinced it was a hospital, and I said that, and he said, you're calling me a liar. Why would you be calling me a liar when I've just been through all this? Just constantly turning it back on me. And I've got a very long history of anxiety and depression, and that sets the doubt going in my mind.
Were you in love with him at this point?
I suppose I was in love with the idea of it.
According to Philip, the feelings were mutual. He'd arranged another flight home and wanted to make it up to Joanna with something special.
He showed me some photos of some sparkly jewellery and said that he got a surprise for me, and this is a surprise. And he said it was worth loads of money, but apparently he was stopped in Munich for not declaring this jewellery, and he needed me to pay £20,000 to get him released and let him get on his way. So I said no.
When Joanna refused to pay the £20,000 customs bill for the jewellery, Philip tried a different approach.
I got an email from Hubert Fritz, who was apparently with German customs, saying that you're Philip's wife, you need to pay this money.
Philip's wife?
Yeah. I said, I'm not Philip's wife. Then Philip said he was being held underground, that he was being tortured, and that so I said, well, how come you can get your phone to text me? And he said, they let me have it for so long every day. Don't know.
Would you say that you were a vulnerable person at this point?
I was very lonely. I just wanted someone to be with, and for me to love them, them to love me, share your life, do all the things that normal people do.
With all the extra money Philip was asking for, Joanna had soon eaten into £40,000 of her savings. But with Philip promising to pay her back on his return to the UK, the requests kept coming, and Joanna kept paying. Over the next 5 months, leading up to June 2020, Joanna sent Philip almost £20,000 in small amounts for living costs.
The straw that broke the camel's back, if you like, was that he wanted to sort Joyce out, his daughter, before he came back to England, because he was never setting foot in Germany again. So I said, well, what do you want? And he said he wanted £350,000 to buy her an apartment.
Oh yeah, I'll just pluck that out of my back pocket, love.
Yeah. So I'm a nurse, I'm single, I don't even work full time. So I said no. I've been saying no ever since.
So in total, how much have you sent to him?
£65,000.
£65,000 over a period of how long?
A year.
Finally believing she was being scammed, Joanna contacted the police and was put in touch with Action Fraud, who advised her to cut contact with Philip. But despite ignoring his calls, he still manages to play with her emotions, keeping up her hopes of getting her money back.
This last few days is said, you know, how can you abandon your money? Clever.
So you tell me now what you would like us to do.
Just to confirm, really, just so that I can say, you've lost that money, he's a wrong 'un, and I can move on, put it behind me. Yeah, basically, that's what I've
Sounds
got
to me
do.
like you've got yourself mentally prepared for it and you're kind of ready.
Yeah.
Generally, we see them holding conversations and being all nice and saying, I love you and all the rest of it. This guy has been abusive, threatened to commit suicide, blaming her, my daughter's going to die if you don't pay me this money. And he's clearly preyed on the fact that she's a caregiver. You know, if you don't do this, she will die. You know, what nurse is going to want to hear that?
With huge sums of money at stake, it's easy to forget that the emotional impact on victims of romance fraud is often even more significant than the financial impact. And that was definitely the situation with our next case study, who to this day is still struggling to get over the devastation caused by their scammer. When 61-year-old care worker Carol Goodall was encouraged by friends to join a dating site, she was on a quest to find love. Little did she know her story would end in a fight for justice against one of the most prolific romance con men in the UK.
I'd been married for 25 years and the marriage broke up in 2006. So I'd been on my own, really. And then just talking to some girls and they were saying, oh, you should be going out more, you should be enjoying your life. Thought about it and I thought, well, I'm not going to meet anybody by staying in all the time.
Carol had tried a couple of different dating sites over the years before meeting Gary on Plenty of Fish.
He messaged me and said, hello, how are you doing? And we started talking from there. Everything seemed to be going okay. We met up on Boxing Day for the first date. And he was very polite, opened the door for me, brought the meal, and he was very, very nice.
Gary told Carol that he was a mechanic and that he owned several garages in Somerset and Dorset. Gary seemed keen to spend time with Carol, and she felt the same.
On the weekends that I wasn't working, we would go away. He'd book really nice hotels, we'd go out for meals, we'd go out shopping. I was growing closer to him, definitely.
On one of these occasions, Gary confessed something about his past.
He said, I have been to prison. And I went, right, okay. He told me it was for bank fraud because he said it was coming to the time of the recession. He said, and he had all these garages and it was coming up to Christmas, and he said, I didn't want my workers to be out of a job at Christmas time. So he did bank fraud, and I said, well, I can kind of understand why you did it. I personally wouldn't have done it myself.
Carol introduced Gary to her children, who instantly liked their mum's new boyfriend. Things then started to move fast.
We'd gone out one night for a meal and he said, oh, I've been thinking, you know, how about getting married? And I thought, I'm not getting any younger. We get on well. Yeah, the kids like him, so why not?
Carol and Gary set a wedding date for the 19th of November 2018. In the meantime, the couple were making plans to buy a home together. Gary suggested Carol sell her house in Haywards Heath and put the money from that sale together with the proceeds from the sale of his own home.
If the children want to come down, they can come down, we'd have room for them. So that's how it all started.
And Carol wasn't the only family member that Gary had financial plans for. Carol had given her children £30,000 each to get on the property ladder. But rather than have the money sit in a bank account, Gary had a different idea for daughter Kirsty's cash.
He promised me it'll go to an investment thing, so you put your money in, and then each month you get your interest back. So each month he said, oh, you'll probably bring home about an extra £500 and that money won't go up or down. Your money will stay the same that you put in, the 30 grand. It'll be yours and you've always got that 30 grand and take it out whenever you want.
With Kirsty's inheritance invested in what seemed like a legitimate scheme, Carol and Gary, who are now married, started viewing dream houses, and Carol went ahead with the sale of her home. Gary took care of the financial affairs once the house was sold.
He said to me that he was going to put it into the account where the money was, which he said at that particular time was about 450,000. So I'm thinking, oh, blimey, that's a good amount.
Carol sold her house and transferred the £100,000 from the sale into Gary's account and moved into rented accommodation with him while they looked for a new home. But despite making offers on several new properties, their house purchase never materialised because Gary failed to transfer the money to the estate agent.
He'd always have a really good excuse that, so I don't class myself as stupid. So I would sit there and think, really? Well, yeah, I suppose that could be right, yeah.
And this pattern of letting Carol and her family down started to develop.
He would say to Kirsty, oh, well, if you're going to learn how to drive, you need a decent car. Well, I'll get you a car. But then there was always something that it would have to go back for some reason.
Gary suddenly started working weekends and became noticeably less available. And he began to cancel plans with Carol right at the last minute.
I mean, he would say, oh, we're going to go away this weekend because I think we need some time away. I would leave work early, which meant I was losing money. And that's when all the arguments started.
Then Carol received a message that would change everything.
I got a text message and it said, whatever games you and Gary are playing, it's not very nice. And I gave her a ring and I said, I'm sorry, you sent me a text, but I don't know what you're talking about. And she said, oh, are you with Gary? And I said, well, he's not here at the moment, but yeah, we're together. She said, so am I. And we spoke on the phone for about 2.5 hours.
As the two women swapped stories, Carol realised that Gary had also persuaded the other woman to sell her home and transfer the money to his account. It was time to confront Gary.
I said to him, I've contacted the police, and he went, no, you haven't. I said, okay, but I have. Yeah, and he said to me, you effing stupid cow. I said, just give me my money back and you go your way and I'll go my way.
But Gary refused to return Carol's money, and it seemed the £30,000 he'd allegedly invested for her daughter Kirsty had also disappeared.
When I found out, I hit the roof. To be honest, I was not happy. I was messaging him saying, well, where are you, what's going on? And I got nothing back on them voicemails or nothing, because he wouldn't answer the phone.
By the time they all realised it was too late, Gary had taken £160,000 from Carol and her family.
He just disappeared and I hadn't got a clue where he was.
With her money and Gary vanished into thin air, Carol's hope lay in the hands of one man, DCI Noel Simmons of Sussex Police.
Romance frauds relies very much on the emotion of love. In this case, all the way from the start, they were being groomed towards that singular end of getting everything that they had and taking it.
We'll come back later in the programme to see whether Noel was able to catch up with Gary and bring him to justice.
While all wasn't as it seemed with Gary and his relationship with Carol, we're investigating if Philip Keith is being honest with 55-year-old nurse Joanna. I was shocked by Philip's tactics of being loving and then abusive, sometimes on the same call. I spoke to psychologist Lahani Noor, to find out what sort of psychological tricks a scammer might be playing on a victim by treating them this way.
So how does a scammer elicit sympathy from the victim?
So the scammer will invite the victim to prioritise their need. So not the victim needs, or the scammer's need. They're saying, this is happening to me, so therefore you must feel it also. It's almost like a symbiotic invitation that whatever is happening to me is happening to you also. So the victim stops thinking about themselves and their own need, and they just think about the need of the scammer.
So we're talking about things like when they say, you know, oh, I need money for an operation, or something's happened and we've even had people saying that they've been kidnapped and they need ransom money or whatever. Yeah. Is that what we're talking about here?
Absolutely, but it starts much earlier in the process. So where it starts early in the process is in that kind of gaslighting process or the love bombing process, which is that whatever is happening for me is of most important and you have to respond accordingly. And if you don't, I will react in some way and I will leave you fearful of attack or assault or rejection. And it gradually builds up to the big crescendo, which is that you have to give me money and discount yourself, discount what's happening to you and what your needs are to meet mine. So slowly over a period of time, a psychological imbalance starts to happen.
Using a combination of psychology and technology, Philip Keith persuaded Joanna Bark to send him more than £60,000 as he put her under crushing pressure using calls and emails. I'm trying to find out whether this man is really who he says he is. I'm getting some additional support from Dan Winchester at Scamalytics, a company that specialises in keeping scammers off dating sites.
Philip Keith, he is claiming to be a 54-year-old male based in Munich. We checked the data that you gave us against our database, and we got a match on the photo he's using and that email address you gave us.
Okay.
I'll start off with the email address match. This matched a known scammer who also is claiming to be a 54-year-old male called Philip Keith, but now he is based in Nigeria. And the reason we know he's a scammer is because we got that exact same email address from Action Fraud back in November of last year.
It appears a year before Joanna reported her case to Action Fraud, someone else also had concerns about Philip Keith.
What Action Fraud do is they will share data with organisations like us to make sure that at least that report that you put into Action Fraud is frustrating future scammers, helping us catch them and helping dating sites keep them off their platforms.
So this data connected to a scammer already?
Yes, absolutely, yeah. We also got a match on the image. We got 5 matches. He's using 3 different names here. And I don't know if you can see that actually, but he's actually reversed the image there.
Oh my days, he has.
He's
Why?
flipped it.
Why would he do that?
He's done that so that it doesn't show up on an image search.
That is so crafty.
So the advice we always give people is do an image search, and the scammers are getting wise to that.
Dan was also able to trace the scammer's IP address, the unique number given to a piece of hardware that uses the internet. He can see the scammers are in Nigeria, but they have a clever way of hiding their exact location.
The IP address is in the United States. The operator is a company called FDC Servers, and the number of scammers on this IP address is 1,353. Wow. So again, we're looking at a really bad IP address.
But the IP address was based in the US.
It's really clever, and what's happening is the people operating these servers are allowing their servers to be used as proxies. The scammer in Nigeria doesn't have to go anywhere near the server. They're basically just connecting to the server over their Nigerian internet connection, and then the server is then basically lending that person its own IP address and replacing the Nigerian IP address with the UK one.
We also sent you a passport. Did you find anything with that?
Yeah, when I did an image search on this passport, I managed to find another passport with a completely different photo, completely different information, but the exact same passport number.
Wow, yeah.
So what this suggests to me is that Philip Keith, the person claiming to be Philip Keith, has used some sort of template, but they haven't bothered changing the passport number.
Earlier in the programme, we met 61-year-old care worker Carol Goodall, who was conned out of £160,000 by her partner, the man she believed to be Gary Rogers.
I said to him, I've contacted the police, and he said to me, you effing stupid cow.
When Carol's case was handed to DS Noel Simmons, it wasn't exactly straightforward for a number of reasons. Firstly, Gary Rogers was not his real name.
His name is Richard Robinson, which is his police name, because it's the name that he first came to police attention for. I think there are 23 aliases known to police that he's used.
For the purposes of Carol's story, we will continue to refer to the man as Gary Rogers, as that was who she believed him to be.
I've got a master's degree in criminology from Cambridge. I'm very good with spreadsheets, I'm very good with numbers, and even with that, this was taking me hours to sift through to figure out what was happening.
Gary was clearly a professional con man with a criminal record to prove it.
He does have previous convictions for fraud, and he was still on licence, having been released from prison for those frauds when he started targeting the victim for these ones. Got convictions going back several years for fraud across finance, romance fraud and vehicle fraud. For him, it's not a relationship, it's a job.
With a track record of convictions for fraud and romance fraud, Noel started to see noticeable patterns in the way Gary operated. Always on the lookout for his next victim, Gary would go to great lengths to convince women he was the real deal.
I have videos on his phone of him proposing to one of the other victims, and again another victim did provide a statement in which said that he had proposed.
Gary was also very calculating in the personality type and financial status of the victims he chose.
There was also a certain type in terms of occupation, people in very caring jobs. With the age, the women that he targeted tended to have their own house. So that means they have disposable assets.
After Carol and victim number 2 had joined forces and reported Gary to the police in January 2018, he moved straight on to his third victim. Unfortunately, when this victim confronted him about the information Carol had provided her with, Gary turned nasty.
He clamped his hand over her mouth and pinched her nose while dragging her across the house and screaming in her ear. So how that assault would have ended if she hadn't fought him off, locked herself in the bathroom and called the police, it could have ended extremely badly.
Gary was charged with assault and witness intimidation, with a trial date set for June 2018, but he skipped bail and disappeared. He was found, thanks to the quick thinking of an officer who'd read about the case.
She received a phone call where she was told that he was at this pub now. She drove straight into work, threw on her body armour, grabbed a collie, jumped into a car, went straight out and found him and arrested him. And then she tells me as well that he tried to resist arrest and failed.
Gary was arrested for interrogation.
His account was that all of these women had knowingly and sometimes at their own instigation had invested money in setting up a business. It had been hard business times, the business had failed, it wasn't his fault, it's a tough time for all businesses.
But Sergeant Noel Simmons was not convinced and had another version of events that he wanted to put to the court.
The statement that I took off Carol focused very much on the fact that the agreement between them was that she would sell a house, they would pull the resources, this money would go towards the children, the rest would be put into savings to buy their dream house together. So all we needed to show was that that money hadn't gone in, and then provide the circumstantial evidence that shows that she's trustworthy and he's not.
Noel and his team built a strong case.
Everything was making sure that every piece of paper was in the right place, because quite simply I didn't trust him not to have some trick thrown at the end.
Gary, real name Richard Robinson, was given a 10-year prison sentence for romance fraud crimes. A sentence that brought some sense of justice to his victims, including Carol.
Now being given a 10-year prison sentence, how did that make you feel?
10 years I thought good, but then once obviously Once he's been in prison, if he behaves from what I've been told, he could be out in 4. And I am extremely worried that he will come out and do exactly the same again to other people.
In terms of the sentence, as you say, he's got 4 years. That's 4 years for me to make sure that everyone our side are ready so that when he comes out, we can do everything to stop him from being able to find people and to stop it early if he does try and target people.
I really do appreciate every single thing that you have done to get this man put away.
Joanna Bark met Philip Keith via Tinder. A complicated relationship followed where 55-year-old nurse Joanna was pressured into sending Philip £60,000 via aggressive emotional blackmail. Our investigations have shown that just like Carol Goodall, Joanna is a victim of a sophisticated scam. The photo of Philip had been rotated. That makes it harder to track on a reverse image search.
They're learning new ways to hide.
Yeah.
Joanna is still in contact with Philip, and the requests for money keep coming. It's time to tell her the truth.
So, how have you been since we last spoke?
Okay, yeah, just waiting.
Have you had much more contact?
Yeah, every night he's been asking for more money, 20,000 to get him home, pushing me to get a loan. Said no, I can't get a loan, no collateral, use your house. That's when he starts to get abusive, and then I'm the one that's in the wrong.
That emotional guilt, the use of language to create an array of emotions that will basically control you into doing what they want.
Yeah.
Philip sent Joanna his home address in the UK. After doing some investigating online, we found that wasn't his home at all. It appears that 2 people have lived there for the last 18 years. Neither of them is Philip Keith. I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay. Stupid.
Pardon?
Stupid.
We don't agree with that, do we?
Not at all. We always say scammers are sophisticated in the tricks they use. They are becoming more strategic in how they do what they do, okay? You thought that you had found someone that you were going to fall in love with. And of course, we're all a bit vulnerable when we're looking for love. So please don't blame yourself. When investigating this scam, we took expert advice from a company called Scamalytics. They used sophisticated software to help us uncover the truth. After analysing Philip's dating account, they made a shocking discovery about the IP address and where it came from. So an IP address is a unique string of numbers that reveals where a computer is located. Now, the IP address led him to something called a proxy server. That is, something used to hide exactly where someone is accessing the internet from. The proxy server that links to Philip's profile also has links to over 1,300 other fake profiles.
Oh my goodness.
It's a lot, isn't it?
We have also information on the location. Repeatedly, these profiles dropped off that proxy server at crucial points in a scam, and they accessed the internet most likely via mobile phone or Wi-Fi via a distinct location. And that's the country of Nigeria.
And it's not just their IP addresses that they're attempting to scramble. Another thing this scammer has cottoned onto is the use of a reverse image search, which normally allows us to see where else the photos sent to victims have been used online. Time to show Joanna this simple picture trickery.
The photo of Philip had been flipped 180 degrees.
Yeah.
Can you see that?
Yeah.
In doing this, it makes it harder for someone to reverse image search a photo.
Oh, yeah.
So what you can see is that scammers are becoming aware of the tricks of the trade, so to speak, and they're now becoming more crafty and more covert with their activity. Despite the scammer's efforts, we were still able to track down the real person behind the photos of the man Joanna fell in love with. His name is Daniele Neri, and he is a veterinary nutritionist from Italy. I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, at least I know now.
He posts regularly, but has open privacy settings.
Yeah.
And scammers love that because it means that they can steal a person's identity. How do you feel about that?
Just overwhelmed. Ashamed.
Ashamed. Ashamed.
Not standing my ground more, not stopping it all months ago.
You mustn't feel ashamed. Because ashamed suggests that you've done something wrong. You haven't. You are very much the victim in all of this. Do you know what I mean? The only person that should feel ashamed is that person, and I guarantee you he won't do.
No.
Before today, Joanna already had a strong suspicion she'd been scammed. However, this finally closes the case, and it's good to see that she's ready to put it behind her.
How do you feel about blocking him? Do you want to?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do it. This is great news. I think it's great that you feel strong enough, feel empowered with the knowledge we've given you to be able to block that man and get rid of him from your life.
Yeah.
Do you think you'll miss talking to him?
Yeah. It is nice every now and again to think that somebody was thinking about you and texted you or asked how your day was, and yeah, simple little things. But it was all fake, so taught me a lot. And it's made me a stronger person as well.
Don't let it put you off finding someone. Yeah. You deserve to have somebody nice. You're a lovely lady.
Thank you so much for everything.
Absolute pleasure.
You're welcome.
This experience has been quite harrowing at times. It's been an emotional roller coaster. I'm sad, but the overwhelming feeling is relief that I can now put it all behind me, move on, and learn from the experience, and hopefully other people will see this and realise that it can happen to them, but to be so careful.
And to think that that proxy was connected to over 1,300 fake accounts. For me, that was surprising, so I can't imagine how that would have been for her to take.
You could see the shock on her face.
Yeah,
she almost took her breath, you know, when you told her.
But I really hope that she has the ability to move forward. And I really do wish her well.
I think she does. I think she's going to be one of the ones that goes ahead and shuts the door on that and moves on.
Yeah.
If you think you've been scammed in a similar way or been asked to send money to someone you've been talking to online, then we'd like to hear from you. Email us at loveormoney@bbc.co.uk.
Join us again.
At that point, the ball dropped. This is definitely a con.
As we're on the case of yet another cold-hearted crook.
So I reversed image searched that image, Kim, and that is the original.
That's Ronaldo.
The Brazilian footballer.
Details of organisations offering information and support with fraud are available at the BBC Action Line website.